The never quit part of me is the thing that has brought me to where I am today. I thought I knew everything. I didn't know anything. Unless I'm right with me, nothing else really matters. This is an internal game first. Creativity for me is getting in the arena and then figuring out how to use the arena differently than anybody else, because that's where your unique success could be.
Hello and welcome to the Success Differently podcast. My name is Michelle Sorgaroli, and I am being joined today by Kevin Palmieri. Kevin is the founder, he's the CFO and co-host of two global top 100 podcasts. He's guested on over 1,000 podcasts, spoken at hundreds and hundreds of speeches and presentation, and this is a man who's done his reps. He's constantly practicing his craft, which I really respect and which is why he's here. Kevin is a man of many lives. He had a beautiful car, a great apartment, a great income, a beautiful girlfriend, and on the outside, everything looked amazing, except that it wasn't. And at that time, as you say, you hit rock bottom. So from that point, Kevin went on to then become hyper-focused on learning, and he started looking at things with more curiosity and more fulfillment, and started to question, what's next? What's the next thing? Which took him to where he is today as co-founder of Next Level University, which is focused on curiosity and possibility and helping people achieve greater and new levels in their life, their love, their health, and their wealth. Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
First of all, thank you for the wonderful introduction that I hope I can somewhat live up to. And shout out to my wonderful wife, Taryn, and Fudge and Ace. They get the love in this episode as well. So I appreciate that very much.
Thanks so much, Kevin. It's really a treat to be here. Now, my question to get us started is, I didn't mention this earlier, but your social handle is the Never Quit Kid, right?
Yes.
And I'm curious about that because as I'm reflecting on your journey, you went from what I might call striving for the top, in pursuit of the American dream, if you will, realizing that, and then going from striving for the top into what I alluded on earlier is being hyper-focused on learning. So we went into a hyper-intense period. And then you moved into a curiosity stretch, which we would call next level. So I love words. So we went from striving for the top to hyper and then to next level. And to me, there's some shifts in framing and perspective, and there's a different energy in those. I'm curious about your experience as you went through those and what the next Never Quit Kid, how that shows up in those different phases.
I think the Never Quit Kid has allowed me to actually move through those phases. I don't know many people who enjoy getting thrown into thorn bushes, but that was me when I was younger. I never felt like I was the most talented at anything. Yeah. But the one thing that I had that a lot of people around me didn't have is my ability to just suffer. It was okay, well, maybe you're smarter, or maybe you're better looking, or maybe you're taller, or whatever it is. I will just stay out in the cold longer than you. And when you go inside, I will win. And I think to this day,
interesting,
my quote unquote success is a result of that. I was not very smart when I started this journey. I was not a strong, capable speaker like I intend to be today, but I have just suffered through 3,150 something episodes as of today. So the never quit part of me is the thing that has brought me to where I am today, for sure. Now I think I'm trying to be in the phase where the chip on my shoulder is great, and I don't ever want to lose the chip. But there's a fine line between you running the chip and the chip running you.
Can you expand on, can I interrupt you there? The chip on my shoulder, when you speak to that, what do you mean?
Raised by my mom and my grandmother, didn't know my dad. He walked out when I was young. There were not a lot of people betting on me. Understandably so. I wasn't betting on myself. So it's that. And I think, honestly, maybe the biggest chip on my shoulder is younger Kev, who didn't believe any of this was possible. I want to prove him wrong in that way, but maybe right in the very small ways where he said, I think I'm capable of something way beyond myself and way greater than myself. So yeah, external from the outside, but also internal from my own limiting beliefs that I've been battling with.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You said your ability to suffer. I wrote down the word endurance.
Hmm.
There's also, resilience around that. You were alluding to a younger boy, younger Kevin at that time. So where do you think that came from? I'll stay out longer than you. When you go inside, I'll still be here. Where do you think that natural tendency came from?
I don't know. There was always a piece of me when I was younger that I liked being reckless. I just
Mm.
I enjoyed risks. I remember my buddy and we would rake all of the leaves into a pile. And there was this big rock, it had to be 15 feet. And we would jump from the top of the rock pile into the leaves. And I was the only one who knew how to do a front flip. I was the only one who knew how to do a back flip. And I was trying to teach people. And I said, you have to commit. I know it's scary, but you got to commit, because if you hesitate, that's when you get hurt. And for me, that kind of became the through line of everything that I did. And then I became,
Right.
I became good at that stuff, because I think where other people would say, well, there's a chance I could get hurt there, I would say the same thing. There's a chance I could get hurt there. But what if I can do it in a way where I don't get injured? Like, what is there for me in terms of lessons or experience? So I think that's a big piece of it. And then if I reflect, I wanted to be a professional wrestler when I was really young.
Oh, wow.
I loved professional wrestling. So my cousin used to beat the crap out of me. And he used to throw me in thorn bushes. And I remember he hit me over the head with a metal folding chair one time. And it was a very heavy metal folding chair. But there was a piece of me that was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I can do this. Then I wanted to be a stuntman after that, because that seemed like it would be cool. And then in high school, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, for a time, I was training to fight professionally. I wanted to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter.
That's interesting, isn't it? As those are all very physically aggressive.
Yeah.
And there's that chip, if you will, that chip presenting through those desires in a way. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that, because how, your chip at that time was serving an energy in you that was really elevating strength, if you will. Like, I'm strong, right? I can endure. So again, this idea of the chip, I love this journey, because as you think about the striving, when you were, smaller, I'm going to endure and I'll outlast you, and then striving for the top and that intense pursuit. And there's a different energy in that. And then the energy top pursuit is very different from the energy in hyper focus on learning. There's an intensity, but it's different.
Yeah.
And so and then when you moved into this idea of next level, it's softer. It has a different energy again. And so how has the chip continued to be there and serve you, but how has it shifted for you too?
So I ended up the job that you spoke of, the job that you alluded to in the weatherization industry.
Yeah.
I got essentially lucky when I got that job. And I know a lot of people would say, well, that's self-deprecation. No. I went to like a class for people who are looking for a new career. It was like a 4-day class. Cool. I like working with my hands. Let me give this a shot. At the end of it, the person who was hosting the event brought me in and said, hey, we're going to connect you with the most successful company, the best company. And I was like, okay, I'm sure you say that to everyone. Cool. They said, it's an amazing job, amazing leadership. The only downside is you're going to have to travel. And I was like, I'm out, not interested. They said, but you're going to start at $50 an hour. And I was like, this is not real. This is not real. This is not a real opportunity. So I ended up getting more information. I met my boss for the first time, and I was clued in on this is a very real possibility. And so this is where the chip at that time was, Kev, you have to be so far outside of your comfort zone to take this opportunity and run with it. The first job I ever did, Michelle, with this company, I lived in Massachusetts at the time. Our first job was in Wilmington, Delaware. So I meet my boss for the second time. I've only seen this gentleman one time before. I get in his Subaru Outback with my little suitcase packed. We drive 12 hours from Massachusetts to Delaware. I move into a house that the company had rented.
Right.
I meet 5 other people I've never met. And then the next day I wake up and go do a job I've never done before. And that was my trial by fire. So the chip was, I need to find a way to make this work if I want to be any level of successful. That was the piece then. The piece after that, after I struggled and I had my suicidal ideation and I was just struggling, I realized that the thing that had held me back the most was my lack of awareness. So the new chip became, if I can look in mirrors that other people aren't willing to look at, I'll get growth other people aren't willing to grow through. All right, let me give that a shot. And that sucks, and it has its ups and downs for sure. And in a weird way, when Next Level started, I think the chip got even bigger because I went from being very successful to being $30,000 in debt. My car broke down. I couldn't afford to get it fixed. I get sent to collections. I couldn't afford Christmas presents for my wife. That level of just suffering reignited that chip.
Interesting.
And I would say from the outside, it's softer. But behind the scenes, I think the chip is burning maybe brighter and hotter than it ever has, but it's from a place of abundance as opposed to a place of scarcity like it was for the first 27 years of my life, I would say.
I think that's the shift, right?
Yes.
Going from a place of scarcity, which of course is fear-based, right? And going to a place of abundance. So the chip is serving abundance, which is more purposeful and passionful and loveful.
I'm running towards something.
Yeah, it's very different.
It is.
So the energy that the chip carries has a very different impact on you.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's also done a really good job of removing any entitlement. I think that's a big piece of, I have really big goals and I say them publicly and I mean them. I really, really want what I say I want. And I have an agreement with myself. Either I do what it takes to accomplish those goals or I don't get them and I do not get to complain about it. That just, I'm dieting right now to get to a certain weight. It's nobody's fault if I don't get there. It's not McDonald's fault. It's not my wife's fault. It's my responsibility. It's not their responsibility. It's mine. So I like to be very real and honest with myself because, again, for a lot of my life, I didn't. I lied to myself and that got me in some not so great places.
Yeah. So you have that clarity of when you have lied to yourself in your past because you've seen that. How do you know? Because I think it's hard to be honest with ourselves sometimes. How do you know when you're being honest with yourself as opposed to maybe having that blind spot of lying to yourself?
I think the first sign is you don't want to do it because you're scared. So just as an example, it would be very easy for me to say, well, I don't want to do that interview today. I don't know. I'll reschedule that to another day. When the truth of the matter is I'm intimidated to do it and I'm scared to do it and I don't want to do it, but I know I should. So I think one is intuition. Intuitively, if we're willing to sit with it, we kind of know. A habit that I practice often that I don't know if it's common or not, I don't know, but I try to sell myself on the alternative. So I'm always trying to do that. If I want to go get fast food, I sell myself on the reasons why I shouldn't. And I try to increase, well, it's 10 minutes down the road. You're in your pajamas. Do you really want to go wait in line? It's, you're comfortable. I kind of do that when I'm going through a problem solving scenario. And then I would say the third thing is I always try to say, is this thing for a moment or is this thing for a lifetime? So am I doing this for the moment? Right. Am I just looking for a dopamine hit? Is this something I'm going to regret? Or is this something that's going to fulfill me? I try to run it through those filters. But again, I make mistakes more than most people probably, all things considered.
You're very self-effacing that way. And I think that's part of the power is recognizing that we make mistakes and
Of
it's
course.
okay to allow for those and to admit them because we're all
Hmm.
human. Really appreciating that. I think, as I alluded to earlier, you've done your reps. I mean, 2000 plus episodes, 2100 plus episodes in your podcast now, your podcast series. Um, and they're daily, right? They're daily.
One is,
Seven,
yeah.
yeah, 7 days a week.
Yep.
Um, so that really speaks to your commitment. It speaks to the repetition. How did you come, like, was this something that was intuitive for you, or how did you come to a place where you knew that that level of consistency was important?
I have to give most of the credit to my business partner on that. He's
Mm.
the so I'm not supposed to be the CFO of any company. I don't that shouldn't have happened.
Aw.
My business partner is a math and science genius. Quite literally, he's hyper intelligent. He's the one who taught me the compound effect. He's the one who taught me the snowball, the flywheel.
Mm.
So I have to give most of the credit to him for that. I never knew we would be doing things the way we're doing them today. I never
Right.
thought I'd be nearly as successful as I am or fulfilled as I am.
Mm.
I think if I get any credit in it, it would be
Mm.
the fact that I was humble enough to say, I trust you. You've studied this way more than I have. You've studied success way more than I have. Let me be number two.
Mhm.
You make a better number one than I do. Let me be number two. And then it was just, yeah, if you tell me to jump, I'll ask how high as long as it's in alignment and it
Mhm.
makes sense and it feels right.
Mhm.
And it was just kind of survive. I think
Mm.
that's the interesting piece is I didn't design most of what we're doing. I mean, I've titled every episode and I do certain things, but I didn't design it. Alan designed it. I survived. That really was what it was, is just survive, get to the end of the day, get to the end of the week. So I think the resilience piece, it really is maybe the most important thing I've ever learned about me because of that.
Mhm.
And it was just survive. Now I'm fully bought in. Now I understand if I do more reps than anybody else, odds of me not being really good at what I am doing is
Mhm.
pretty low.
Mhm.
Even if I'm not naturally gifted, I'll just go out and sing and maybe I'll get better. Cool.
Mhm.
So now I'm really really bought in, but it took years for me to really understand how much things can compound, and
Mhm.
I still don't have a super long-term future perspective. It's
Mhm.
still I don't know what 5 years from today is going to look like. Alan does. I don't yet.
Mhm. It's interesting, the idea that compounding, I think a lot of us are wired that way, where it's hard to see that every little thing that we do on a daily basis is going to somehow turn into a magnificent result when it just
Yeah.
seems so inconsequential. So the discipline, what I'm hearing is that there was a lot of trust
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
that, not in your partner and in his conviction and faith that this would lead to something. And that you were willing to take that counsel, as opposed to earlier when you said, I don't want to pay someone, right? I don't want to pay someone to help me learn something I don't know if I even want to learn, going to university or college, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's different. So I'm hearing, you said that's a piece of who you are, but at the same time, you're very committed or very willing to learn from those who you trust, who have a focus that will help you get where you want to go.
100%. It
Yeah.
For me it helps if the person has the result that I desire,
Right.
right?
It's a
If
big, yeah, it's a big difference, isn't it? Because sometimes if if something is being forced on us, it doesn't it
mm,
doesn't resonate, and we can try and we can follow through and we can do it, but we're never really giving our full selves.
yeah. Yeah.
And as when you were speaking about, in your story, when you've talked about your earlier life, when you literally had it all and were living the so-called American dream,
Mhm.
and dreadfully unhappy. What is different today? Like, you've talked about moving through that phase and getting to a place of fulfillment. What is How are you fulfilled today? Like, what is it serving today versus then?
I think back then it was just the search for the next key that would open the door.
What door, Kevin?
What I thought was happiness. It was, again, you alluded to it. When I was young, I felt insignificant. I felt
Mm-hmm.
insignificant. I felt insecure. I felt unimportant. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, I was broke. I was overlooked by women, which it felt like. And I just felt very insignificant. All right.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense logically that later in life, I would assume that if I had money, I had an attractive partner, and I was in really
Right.
good shape, everything would work itself out. So I think I won my bodybuilding show. That
Mm-hmm.
didn't fix it. My girlfriend's a model. That didn't fix it. Nice car, nice apartment. What is going to fix it? Now I understand that unless I'm right with me, nothing else really matters.
What does
It
that mean when you say right with you?
I need to go to bed, and when I put my head down on the pillow at the end of the night, I have to be okay with my insecurities. I have to be okay with the words that I used. I have to be okay with the type of partner, business partner, intimate partner, leader. I have to be okay with just sitting alone with me because all of this other stuff is external. It doesn't really do anything
Mm-hmm.
internal. Now, I bought a new car a year and a half ago. And when I was pulling out of the dealership, I was crying because I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And when I talked about it on the podcast, I said, also, everybody, you need to know that when I bought this, I didn't expect it to fix anything inside of me.
Right.
Nothing. That's not why I got it. I'm good internally. I'm working on me internally.
Mm-hmm.
The external, it's not going to fix the internal voids. And
Mm-hmm.
so now it really is, I'm very happy with everything I have and we're growing and that's all awesome. But I can't ever lose sight of the fact that this is an internal game first.
Isn't it though? An internal, it's an
It
inside
is.
out job, isn't it?
Yes. And I think that's what fulfillment is,
Yeah.
yeah, I love this and I love getting to
Mm.
do this. But when you and I are done here, you go live a life that nobody sees and I go live a life that nobody sees.
Yeah.
That's the life that better be good. Not
Right.
this one.
No.
Not what you see here.
Mm-hmm.
There's the real world and the social world. I want to make sure my real world, my real life behind the scenes is better than what people see because the opposite is just a dangerous game.
Right. As you're trying to uphold that image,
Mm-hmm.
which is what a lot of us do as we have those success trappings,
Yep.
right? That make
Yep.
it look like we are significant and we are visible and we are accepted. But behind closed doors, we feel very differently.
Mm.
So, yeah, this is lovely. You've shared something in a previous episode somewhere. You said, no story without a lesson and no lesson without a story. And take a lesson every day, capture them daily. What might be a recent story and lesson that you might share in the last couple of days, perhaps, in your growth journey?
Yeah. Man, there's so many. I would say this. There is a giant downside to growth that most people don't talk about.
Yeah, great. Let's go there. I love it.
So Alan is somebody who's not very relatable.
Alan's
He's
your
just
partner, right? Just
yes,
for
yeah,
context.
yeah,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
hyper unrelatable. He just is not a relatable human. And people don't think he's an underdog, even though he kind of always has been. So he's never got the same level of love I get externally.
Mm.
We could put up the same post.
You
Mine
have a
always
lot of
gets more love.
charisma, so I get that.
Yeah, but he does too, though. Maybe
Okay.
more than I do, just in a very
Mm.
different way. I'm starting to understand that I am now, and again, even this potentially comes off in an arrogant way. I don't mean it that way. I'm just way more of a mirror than I used to be. So I'm not necessarily the fun, hang out, mess around Kev. Like I still am with my wife. But I'm very, very growth focused and I say no to a lot of things. And I'm probably not going to be almost anybody's best friend. My circle's very small for a reason. I don't want to overpour and set a
Mm-hmm.
precedent I can't maintain. But I am starting to get treated a little bit different by people because I'm not the same. Don't worry about it. Let's waste the day away. It's not, I can't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
So as I've grown, I have been deeply loved even more by certain people, but I have been more of an outcast to other
Mm-hmm.
people for sure. And I think that's just something that self improvement, personal development, growth, evolution, awareness saved my life for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it has also been relatively detrimental to many of my relationships,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't go back and change it if I had the option.
Right.
So that's the lesson for me is not everybody's supposed to be in your life forever.
Mm.
Some people it's for a season, some people it's for a reason. Some people they're going to teach you something about yourself or vice versa. I want growth. I want growth more than I want almost anything else at this point. And
Mm.
there is a there's an upside. Ooh, it's amazing. But there is usually at least an equal
Yeah.
downside.
And I'm hearing that. I mean, you're, as I said, you're charismatic and you have a great energy around people. So I would imagine that that Kev that you're speaking about was a pretty fun guy to hang around with, right? So you had a lot of attention. I heard I heard a part from you when you were sharing about the loss of relationships.
Hmm,
I heard something there that felt like sadness to me.
hmm.
Is that the case for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm not that guy who in the very beginning I couldn't understand why people didn't have massive goals. Now it's like I understand. Yeah, I
Mm.
completely understand. I completely understand. And I empathize and I support, and I do not want to put my stuff on anybody else. There was a time, I'll never forget this. This was a change in my life. I was early in the growth journey. It's probably like a year or two in. And I was dating this girl, and she said, "Hey, I want to meet your friends." I'm like, "Cool. Yeah, I
Mhm.
got you. I'll invite you down and come hang out." And I said, let me give you a little preface. One, you're going to meet two of my friends. One is like my big brother, just a big teddy bear. He's going to love you. He's going to be so curious about you. He's going to talk me up in front of you. He's just a good man. He was my roommate. I lived with him at the time, my
Mm.
best friend. And I said the other one, and then I paused. And I said, "Oh no. He's going to make fun of me in front of you. He's going to make fun of you in front of you.
Mm.
He's going to say some just bad things. And at the end of it all, he'll say, you know what? This is who I am. I'm just a jerk." And I thought
Oh.
to myself, imagine if I had a friend who had to give that preface before they brought their partner around me. And I could never look at that person again the same way. I couldn't. Here's the sad part. I
Mm.
was the best man at his wedding.
Oh.
I held all three of his children on the day they were born. It just wasn't aligned anymore.
Yeah.
It just wasn't aligned. And tried to make it work. It didn't end up working. And I think about it all the time. I have
Mhm.
no hatred. I have no venom. I have no
Yeah.
bad feelings about that. It's just I was going in a different direction than he was, and I wasn't
Right.
willing to slow down, and he wasn't willing to speed up because maybe that's not
That's
the
not
life
his
that
journey.
it's not
Yeah.
his journey. It's not his journey.
Yeah.
So I'm very sad about that. I think about that
Hmm.
very, very, very often. I've gotten that several times, and I mean that's the downside. That's the downside. But I've also tried to fit in places where I don't belong, and I regretted that more. And I think that's the lesson is one is going to feel more safe and more comfortable, and the other is probably going to feel more scary but result in way more growth and fulfillment. I have nostalgia when I think about those days.
Mm.
I do. I have so much nostalgia and I miss it. Life was easier. It was different. But I don't miss it enough to sabotage all this so I can experience it again.
Yeah. It's true, isn't it? There's a letting go, a time and a season, as you said, and there is a sadness for sure, because obviously this was a very important person to you.
Yeah.
And I think to some level, as you said, the cost of growth. The interesting
Yeah.
thing that you just said a moment ago, you said, I can be safe and comfortable, or I can move into growth and fulfillment. Is that how you said it? Is that what I heard?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I thought the safe and comfortable piece, that's when we tend to stay within those relationships, right? And
Mhm.
where I went with that, interestingly, is I'm not sure that we are so comfortable in those
That's fair.
relationships. And yet we think we are, right? It's because of what we know, but we're experiencing some discomfort in those relationships, but it's a discomfort that we're familiar with. So therefore it feels comfortable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and as we speak about growth and fulfillment, you talked about your key driver, if I understand it to be, is around value and impact and
Mhm.
adding value to others and contributing. And that's what's, as I understand it, fulfilling for you. Is that an accurate summary?
That and then the growth that comes with it. Yeah, the growth. If I want to impact people at a deep level, I have to continue growing. Because if
Right.
if I plateau here, this is the maximum amount of value I can give.
Exactly. Well, it's
Yeah.
curious, right? Because you had originally your hyperconscious podcast,
Mhm.
and after 459 episodes, you had to rebrand it because you realized that it was getting in the way of your next level.
Do you want to know why we really rebranded it?
Sure, share with us why. Yeah.
Evan told us our name was terrible.
Couldn't remember it, right? You said you couldn't remember it. Yeah.
And we pushed back. No, I wanna stay hyperconscious. And he said, "It whatever, you could do it, but the name is terrible." And then we went back to him and said, "We have a new name." And he
Yeah.
said, "No,
Yeah.
that ain't it either."
So funny.
And we said, "Well, we're planting our flag. That's
Well,
what we're
this is
doing
your
now."
next level. It was your next
Yes,
level, out of hyper and into next level.
yes, that's where we
Hyper
are now.
focus and
Yes.
into next level. And what you were doing, you were in a sense rebranding, and you talked about that leaving the place of comfort.
Yep.
And because you had essentially outgrown it, right? And you're moving on. And you talked about the importance of rebranding and noticing when we are outgrowing where we are and making those faith-based leaps of change
Mm.
because we don't know where it's going to go, which takes, as you know, I focus on differentiation, and I help services professionals differentiate themselves. And there's a lot to that when we are outgrowing ourselves, or when we have more shine to come forward and we're limited, and that piece around safe and comfort, when we come to differentiating, that piece around safe and comfortable is a massive barrier. Like
Mm.
we resist against it, right? We don't want to stand out. Humans don't want to stand out
Yeah.
and be different because then we're isolated, right? We're vulnerable because we're different.
Hmm.
You speak about this on your podcast, episode 143. You speak about that around eight podcast lessons in 8 minutes.
Yep.
And you talked about creativity was one of the lessons. You said, quote, I wrote it down. What did you say? You said, I can't find it now. Creativity matters so much more than we think, because it's what differentiates you. And I
Mhm.
want to talk a little bit about that. And then later in that podcast, you also talk about personality and setting yourself apart through your personality, however that shows. Can you share a little bit about what you mean in those two pieces? Because you are specifically speaking to differentiating as a podcaster in this case.
Yeah, I work with right now we produce 57 podcasts and we work with another dozen or so. I'm working with a lot of podcasters on a daily basis. I think the thing that again, everybody, right? One of the things that we fall into is we look at somebody who's doing something that we want to do,
Yeah.
and then I think so often we see their success as the blueprint to the way that we should do it.
Mhm.
Sure, I mean that's a good place to start, but it doesn't mean that's how you're going to do it, and it doesn't mean
Right.
that's the way you're supposed to do it. So
Right.
creativity for me is getting in the arena and then figuring out how to use the arena differently than anybody else does,
Mhm.
because that's where your unique success could be, right?
Exactly.
Where the way we're doing it is very different.
Yeah.
Slash, please do not think my way is the blueprint.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
it's for me maybe, but not for everybody else. And then personality, I don't know. I realized this pretty early on. Some people work with you because they think you can help them first, A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people work with you because they like you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I asked somebody that one time. They said, "Yeah, we're going to choose between you and like five other people." And they came back and chose us. And I said, "Why?" And they said, "I just like you more." It's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh." And the other people were more expensive and all that, but we just like you more. You have a good personality. Okay. The job that I spoke about earlier, the weatherization job.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to meet my boss for the first time, he said, "There's a line of people. We have five people that we hired. We're just waiting to get started. Honestly, we're going to jump you to the front of the line. You have a really great personality that'll mesh nicely with the people that work here." Everybody's like, "Okay." So I think in retrospect, looking back, personality has gotten me a lot of the opportunities that I didn't think I was going to be able to get. And I can't make myself taller. I mean, there's surgeries for that, but I'm not going to go that crazy. That's not it for me.
Not that committed.
I'm not that committed. Anybody else? That's
Yeah.
look, I'm not gonna yuck your yum. You do you. But the personality is something I can work on
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I mean, that's an intangible thing that it's an attribute that I can practice,
And
and
it's
when you get the
unique.
reps in, it's unique.
It's unique to you. Yeah.
Everybody's a little bit different.
That's the key here. I think, I really appreciate that because speaking, what you said is, you wouldn't be where you are if you hadn't been creative. And the key is someone else's blueprint is not your own. I like to call it moving from what I call technical expertise to creative mastery.
Mm.
Because when you get creative, that's actually now when you are truly expressing your greatest value. The technical expertise is your professional value.
Yeah.
But that next level is where that professional value turns into massive impact and fulfillment for all parties involved.
I love that.
Yeah. So and personality is a big part of that. One of the things that I think as we're talking about personality with some people are, well, I don't have that bubbly personality or that outgoing personality, or I don't have that big personality. I'm more of a quiet type, or I'm more analytical by nature. Or how do you help people in that way who feel like their natural personality isn't necessarily what they think it should be?
Ask why. Why do you believe your personality is the way it is? Because I think for a lot of us it's just a limiting belief. It's like
Mm,
it's a level in a video game we haven't unlocked yet. It
yeah.
exists and it's always existed. We've just never been able to access it. And same. I long before this, I didn't feel like I had a bubbly personality. I didn't know. I didn't that wasn't me
Mm,
at all. I think I wanted it to be,
mhm.
but I never knew how to let myself put myself out there. I think so much of it comes from fear. Well,
Mm,
what are people going to think of that version of me, or what are
mhm.
people, how are they going to react? We don't really know. Some people will be drawn to it and other people won't.
How do you
Just
help?
like, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I'd like to hear what you want to say.
I was just going to say, some people are drawn to you already and other
Yeah.
people aren't. It's going to be the same, just in a different ratio potentially.
And how do you help people who feel that resistance when they are holding back that personality within?
It's just dig. I had a call with somebody yesterday. She's in therapy. She's a therapist.
Mm,
And she said, "I don't know where the line between professionalism and personality is." And I said, "Ooh, what
um,
a topic that is." And I said, "Well, what is your definition of professional?" And she gave it to me. And I said, "Okay, what about that is not allowing you to let your personality show through?" And I said, "Can you show me some examples of some people that you resonate with, that
mhm,
you would like to emulate a little bit more?" And
mhm,
then we looked at those people. And
mhm,
I said, "This is my suggestion.
mm,
Next time you and I meet, I want you to record content with me watching you do it, because you're not going to do it the same as if you were just talking to your phone." I've done that so many times with clients,
yeah.
because then it's a conversation where your personality is going to show, as opposed to I'm just talking into the abyss of nothingness.
Mhm,
So I think
mhm,
sometimes it's just being there to support them more than anything else. It's not guide, it's
mhm.
not teach, it's just let me hold space while you can lean into being who you actually are during a conversation with someone.
Yeah. And helping them feel that it's genuine.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. I think sometimes we get caught up on feeling like we need to be something we're not when we're striving to be, right? As opposed to
Yeah.
fully allowing ourselves to express. It's
We
an inhibitor. Go ahead.
we all have a safety net.
Oh yeah.
We all have, and that's all. I say that to people all the time. Like, you got to let go of the safety net. I don't know how or what it is for you yet necessarily,
Mm.
but I imagine if somebody is nervous about their personality, or they're afraid to lean into it, or they don't know what it is or what it looks like yet, what I think would be a really good exercise would be to have a conversation with somebody else, and the other person would record the conversation without you knowing.
Mm.
Now, again, also highly illegal probably in many parts of the world. I'm not saying to do this, but I
Yeah.
imagine if you were able to watch it back and say, wait, that was me,
Mm-hmm.
it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that doesn't exist. It's just something that
Right.
you haven't been able to tap into yet. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. It's the sparkle within,
It is
you
the
know,
sparkle
the
within.
joy.
Mhm.
It's the sparkle because I like to polish the sparkle, as you know. um, what's your safety net, Kevin?
Oh, man, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. That's kind of how I live now. It's like, yeah, I can figure that out. Even if I don't know how to do it yet, I
Mm.
can figure it out. That's one. And the other one I don't necessarily think is a healthy one. I think it's a dangerous crutch. My worst day today is better than my best day used to be.
Mm.
So if I show up, and again, it's going to sound arrogant, I don't mean it that way. If I show up and I give a 7 out of 10 performance, that my 7 out of 10 is better than my old 10 used to be. So even if it goes horribly wrong, I still feel like I'm in a very drastic level of control.
Mm-hmm.
So the safety net is almost, I I don't really need it. That
Mm-hmm.
it's like the certainty to say, like, when it comes to this, I don't really need
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a safety net. I'd rather there not be one, because I'm not going to grow if there is one. But yeah, outside of that, I think I can probably figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Figure this out. This piece about control is interesting, isn't it?
I think that's what confidence is. I do. Now, I gave a speech the other day, and in the middle of it, I was like, this is the best I've ever done, and nothing could possibly go wrong. I just feel, and I was like, why? I've
Mm-hmm.
done this so many times. I feel in control. I just felt in control of everything. Is that what confidence is? It's just control and certainty? Maybe.
What's the everything when you said you felt in control of everything? That felt quite expansive.
Hmm.
What were you speaking to when you said that?
I think I was just in flow. I just hit a zone of flow, and I wasn't thinking about what I was going to say. I wasn't thinking about my
Mm.
responses. It was just easy. Like, things were easy to grab. They were just right there.
Mm.
So it just felt like, yeah, it just felt like I was in control, and even if something was to happen, it wouldn't have mattered at
Mhm.
all. In a weird, but again, that might be like the first time I've ever truly felt that. So this is a new, at least in this realm. There's
Yeah.
uh, Alan and I used to go to the gym a lot, and in many of the lifts, I'm stronger than Alan. I tend to be pretty strong in things, and I would pause at the bottom of my squats, and he would always ask, like, dude, what if you can't get back up? And I said, it's never not happened. I've never not been able to get back up. I'm not thinking it's going to be today. That's control. Very new to me. Very,
Mm.
very, very new to me. So I'm still working through what it actually means and trying to stay humble, because you ride a wave of high and you think, I am in control. Life will crack you over the head with something, and you'll
Oh,
realize
yes, it
quickly you're
will.
not. So
That's
I'm
when
trying
you've
to make sure I stay
I've
humble in it.
noticed that because you said a couple of times, this is going to sound arrogant, but I don't mean it to. That's you're
I'm
very
ex-
aware, right?
I'm exploring.
Yeah.
I'm exploring what it means.
Yeah. And what is so lessons around control as you're exploring that space now, how are you exploring um effectively? Like more more skillfully than you did in the past?
I don't know if I ever really explored control before. I didn't, I assumed it was confident people were confident and I wasn't. And I couldn't really,
Mm-hmm.
because I think there's the control of the moment and then the control of the response if things go badly.
Mm-hmm.
And I never could parse out the difference between the two. So honestly, this is essentially me looking at the book for the first time. I've never seen this book before. I've never,
Nice.
so yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer other than I'm probably exploring it the worst I ever will because I've never done it before. Essentially,
No, it's
is my thought.
beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really curious because, you're touching on the serenity prayer in terms of, allow me to know what I can control, allow me
Mm.
to know what I can't control and to know the difference, something like that. Um, and what can we control? So as you're speaking about control and feeling in control, there's probably, and I'm just playing with you. I
Please.
also, I'm just imagining that inside there's something inside that feels um, true
Mm.
or genuine or consistent or aligned. I'm not sure what the language is, but it feels very stable because we're touching on our essential self, maybe.
Feels whole.
Yeah,
Feels
something
whole.
there. Hey,
Proud.
it's. Mm.
Proud. Yeah.
How does proud present for you? Like, what does it look like and feel like?
Oh, it's overwhelming gratitude and reflection. When I'm either really high emotionally or really low emotionally, I reflect.
Hmm.
And I'll look back at episode 100 and
Hmm.
like I thought I knew everything. I didn't know anything. Cool. That's or I remember thinking, why am I not more successful? It's like, oh, that's why. Oh, that's why I wasn't more successful. I didn't deserve to be and I wasn't ready for
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
Very
well.
honestly, right?
You know what? I got 30 years on you, I think, and I'm still there. So totally
Well,
get it.
I think we're always there to a degree. I think that's
Aren't we though?
humility,
Yeah.
right?
It's
We're
yeah.
it's
It
humility.
Humility is an interesting one. And I think where we can get tangled up, and I just appreciate the awareness because we can get so tangled up inside of control, confidence, even the language gets us tangled up, gets us confused if we don't use language skillfully as we're exploring. I alluded to this earlier. I would imagine that your pursuit to be at the top, then moving to that phase of hyper focus. Again, hyper has an intense energy around it, and then moving to next level, which is gentler and more curiosity based. To my mind, anyway, I'm even noticing just use of language changes how we engage with
Mm,
ourselves and the world,
yeah.
right?
Well, that's
So,
deep. That's a deep, deep, deep layer of awareness.
yeah. Well, and language, I think, is the first thing because language impacts how we think. The only time that we can't think without language. We can feel, we
Mm-hmm.
can sense, but we can't think without language. And yet, if we don't use language skillfully, with awareness of how we're using it. I had this conversation just the other day about we were talking within our group, our mastermind group, about breaking through to the next level. And breaking through has fundamentally aggressive energy in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can feel, just the language can imply pain,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So as we move to the next level or we transition or step into, there's very different energy that we can apply to how we process, how we think about things.
That's a very, very good point. I never really thought about it. I had never really thought about it like that, and I wonder. We had a conversation last week where we said, all right, I don't know if we can work any harder than we're
Mm-hmm.
working. It's time for us
Mm-hmm.
to work a little bit smarter.
Mm-hmm.
And that hasn't, I mean, that's the first time
Ah,
we've really sat down with that because there
oh,
aren't
that's
that many
gorgeous.
hours in the day.
Yeah.
So even that for us was a very unique, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
scary thing, a scary thing
Yeah.
to look at.
Yeah. I love it. Well, as you're next leveling yourself and others towards a next level life, love, health, wealth. Just really want to honor the journey you're on, Kevin, with your partner, Alan. How fortunate you are to have first found each other and to be able to build this gift to the world and to all the people who follow you. I know how important that is to you. I've heard that over and over again. And what I think is, I just really want to sort of capture here. I'm imagining that the Kevin at 27 years old had nowhere near the abundance of love that the Kevin today has.
No, and especially self-love.
Right. Well, it's an inside-out job.
Yeah, that more than, honestly, I might have had more. I had a lot of external love at the time. It could never make up for what I was missing internally. Now I require far less external love. I'm good. I got an amazing wife. I got an amazing business partner. I got a very small list of friends, but they're all good. We have an amazing community, amazing team. So, and I love me, which is something I've been working on for a long, long time.
Yes. And you've got Ace and Fudge.
Ace and Fudge.
Your cats.
Yes. They love me too.
I really do believe that. I don't know about, I'd love to hear, just wind us up. Why cats? I swear to God, you have 9 lives because you lived all 9 of them.
I'll tell you, when I started dating my wife and we were talking about seriously moving to the next level, she said, I need cats. And I was not the cat guy.
Okay.
I was allergic to cats.
Was.
I went to a place where they essentially, oh my goodness, they hook you up to an electromagnetic frequency cuff. They run the allergens through the cuff while they stimulate your spine, just rebuilding the relationship with your central nervous system.
Amazing.
I went from like deathly allergic to cats to now it doesn't bother me at all. And then I became the ultimate cat dad.
Oh my gosh.
That's my evolution.
That is phenomenal. I'm currently reading, you may have heard of it or read it, The Biology of Belief. Do you know it?
Yes, Bruce Lipton, yes.
Yes. So that's what you're getting at, is the environment internally, right? That they were adjusting the environment.
And now I'm good. Now they sleep with me. All this, it's the best. I love cats now. I'm a cat guy.
And they get all your love. That's amazing. Well, I know that you have more love than you can possibly share with the world around you. So I just want to be intensely grateful, hyper grateful for joining us for this next level conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Before we finish up, Kevin, where can people find you if they wanted to connect?
Yeah, you can search the internet. Next Level University will come up. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. And I tend to do this just because I like connecting with people if I can add value. The handle on Instagram is @NeverQuitKid, as Michelle alluded to. And then my email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I do my own emails. Anything I can do to add value, I am just a message away.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I look forward to the next time. Take care, Kevin. Thank you. Bye for now.